Well, hello and welcome to my very first podcast of this new, show, diary. I guess it's a diary. I'm Toby D. Newton, and this you are watching and you are listening to because it's going to be a podcast and a YouTube video as well. So you get the option if you don't like this face, that you can just listen to it on the podcast as well. So, if you want to see my hands fly about, you can watch the video on YouTube and there'll be the audio as well. And just as I've started this, it started pissing down outside with rain, pretty bad weather. Hopefully it picks it up for a bit of atmosphere. It's a bit like a Woody Allen film out there today in New York. But we'll come around to Woody Allen because there's a point about where I'm going to talk about what happened to me last week at the cinema, which has given my friends a good laugh as well. But let's talk a bit about the podcast because this is the very first one, number one, episode 1, as they say in America. And this is all about, it's called The Secret Diary of a Country Bumpkin. Why? Well, basically, a country bumpkin who's 40 something, which is true. I'm not scared to tell you my age. I'm 45 at the moment, so in time I might have to change that if we keep doing this podcast video. And it's just going to be a podcast about a Norfolk person, myself, born and bred in Norfolk. I have lived and worked in London for a little while, and I'm not the worst generation. Wowzers, maybe for a first episode that's going to be anticlimactic. Maybe the ceiling's going to come in from the rain. Who knows? But anyway, I'm going off course, and I'm going to go off course a lot because it's what I do. A little bit of background about me. I am born and bred in Norfolk. As I said, I've worked in London for a little while. I'm not the worst generation Norfolk. If you met my dad, he's definitely a generation above me. He does love using the Norfolk language, the old school Norfolk language, like "right boy, have you got a light?" and plenty of others which I cringe at personally. If you're watching this and you're wondering, I haven't got a tractor. Not all Norfolk people or people who live in the country got tractors. But that being said, I'm proud of being from Norfolk, and I know some of my friends who are not from this area have a laugh because the Norfolk accent, not at me, but they have a laugh. And I think it's just nice as regional accents start to die that probably catalogue this because, I'm proud of where I'm from in Norfolk, and I'm sure there's, just like anyone else, I've got my quirks as well. And definitely, as you just heard, I lost my words there as I start to talk quickly. You could get anything come out, so apologies. If you don't like it, you don't have to listen. Stay on board if you like. I'm glad you're with me. I'm looking forward to it. How are you? I hope you're all well. It's been crazy times. But you're not going to get a posh artiste like Hugh Grant or anyone like that. Or I haven't been to Boris's school, and I will not be a politician. And certainly one thing this diary is not about, these episodes. Obviously we've got COVID in the world, strange times, people love a bit of a laugh, and we're going to have a bit of banter on this. But I'm going to talk about social media in this. So many people have got their different opinions about COVID. I've got mine, you've got yours. This isn't going to come into this podcast. Of course, we're going to say COVID. We're going to talk that things have happened because of the virus, but it isn't going to be about opinions. I'm not here to tell you what to do. You're not going to tell me what to do. So let's just draw a line in the sand there. Let's just make this as pleasant as it can be. And I'm sure there'll be some people who are trolls and leave nasty comments. Well, I don't care. This is the whole point of the Norfolk Bumpkin, because there are some nasty people about all regional accents, and I don't give a shit. So this is just a bit of fun for people who want to enjoy it and just hear about my week, hear about things I got to talk to in general. I'm not going to be too offensive when I talk about them, but I think it's important to talk about these things. So what's the first thing of the week? Well, I mentioned my dad, who is old school Norfolk, and basically parents will never stop surprising you. There's going to be a lot of things about my mum and dad in this. My mum has been shielding for a long time with COVID. So my mum was in the top bracket of vulnerable people. So bless her, she has spent a lot of time indoors. Now, we'll come to that in another episode. But my dad, bless him, never stopped surprising me. And this one was kind of fresh because on Saturday, I was getting ready. I was going out to watch the Lions game with my friends. And my dad just suddenly came in and he looked at me like a child who was 5 again and said, "Did you know that the time zones were different in America? That you could fly from, say, New York and fly to Seattle and there was a time difference." And I looked at him in total disbelief. And I know I come out with some crazy things, and by all means, take this, that, you know, on this podcast, on this video, that you are not going to see the most intelligent man in the world. But by all means, I can laugh at myself. I will laugh at myself on this, and I am going to laugh at myself in this first episode. So please don't take it that I'm having a pop at anyone's intelligence, because I'm not, because by far I'm not the most intelligent person on this planet, and I don't pretend to be. I come from a very normal background, and we're also going to talk about privilege in a bit as well, and I'll come round to why I'm going to talk about that. But my dad looked like a child again, and the more you think about it, I thought it had been increases. I went from different evolution of stages of this, from when he said it to looking like a child to being absolute disbelief of, "Did you not know that?" And then in my head, as I was going out, I was on the train into Norwich, because I live in Attleborough in the country, so pure country bumpkin, and we'll talk about that in later episodes as well, because I've moved from Norwich, which is a city, to Attleborough, which is just outside in the real country, in the last couple of years. And this was one of the things, this has totally changed what I was probably going to start and talk about on this first episode. And it got me thinking on the train, and it gave me so many laughs, really. Not laughing at my dad, kind of laughing at him, but I'm allowed. I'm his son, and he tries to wind me up all the time. But I was kind of thinking, well, I went from the laughing stage to actually kind of thinking, probably saying, well, I am being a little harsh, because like when I think the generations, and this is important, what I probably set the groundwork here, when I say I'm not the most intelligent, I'm not knocking myself, but I am from a working class background. And it's a working class family that I come from, right along the lines of my grandparents as well. So we forget sometimes about what kind of our parents put aside for us. Now, I've got a sister as well who's 8 years older than me. And, you know, we've had a good upbringing, you know. Mum and dad have done a lot for us, and my mum and dad are now more elderly, so I'm trying to look after them as best I can, as we all do, especially over the craziness what has been the last kind of 15 to 18 months, and still to an extent ongoing. So I've tried to look after them. But as I got thinking about this comment about America, I was thinking in the beginning how fucking ludicrous this was, because I myself, over 2 different periods, have travelled like the Californian coast with my friend Noodles, and I was contacting my mum and dad and speaking to my dad on the phone at different periods of time, when I was saying to him, well, it's the evening here and it's the morning there, I've got you early, or it's early here and I've got you just when you've come back from the Norwich game, you know, the 2 different time zones. And he hasn't thought about it. But he does appreciate, you know, the other bit I started to think about was how crazy was it? What has he thought exactly? And I think he didn't, you know, he wasn't shocked by this. I think he did know places like Australia with different time zones. So he was absolutely flummoxed about this American thing. But when I was laughing on the train, I was thinking, my God, I wonder what he's been thinking when the news has been on New Year's Day or New Year's Eve, and certain time zones are ahead of us and they're already hit New Year's. He's probably thought that's a standing joke, so I was laughing to myself. And then we got talking about this in the car, and my dad was like, well, you know, you got to remember, I went to like a grammar, like old school, you know, I didn't go to a school like you. And I kind of thought that's a bit of a joke, because the school I went to is no more. It's now an academy. Earlham High School doesn't exist anymore because it was a shithole as well. So my dad was saying that it was like an education thing that he didn't know, but he really didn't know. He was like a child. And then I got to think, when we do find out new stuff, we are like that sometimes. But he was so impressed by this whole thing about the time zones. And it still kind of makes me laugh, because it took me back. And I went through, like I said, all this period of like different things, and I was thinking, Christ, what did he think on New Year's Eve? You know, this is all new to him. And so we started talking about the time zones, and he was absolutely, it was like giving him information to a new world at 68 years old, that I'd give him new information, bless him. And you know, I now sit here and I worry, what doesn't he know? What does he want to know? Because life is short. Maybe I should tell him, but you don't want to patronise someone at the same time. But he was so happy. And also, I was kind of thinking, all these American TV shows he watches, he hasn't been in the joke. He's probably thought that's part of the joke, that you go, that these people are flying somewhere and there's different, they talk about the different time zones, why they're got jet lag and stuff. And he doesn't get it. So now he does. He's in on the joke about time zone difference. And yeah, fucking marvellous from I'm concerned. And he absolutely loves it. He's put me in my place because he's told me it's about education. I was very lucky that I was in a position to get a better education. Maybe I was. But we'll talk much more about my dad on this diary as the weeks go by. He does come out with some absolute classics. We think at the moment, and we'll talk about this a lot, he's getting a lot of shit off my mum because, oh, sorry, I should apologise. I should say from the start, this is going to have swearing in. This is going to be a bit, if it was a pornographic, it would be a bit blue because of my language. I do tend to swear a lot. When I'm on the radio, and I do the radio, this isn't the place to big up my show or promote that. But when I'm on the radio, I don't swear. Rule of thumb, do not swear on the radio. It's family time all the time. So I don't get to swear. So I am going to swear on this. I'm going to try to modify it a little bit, but hopefully not too offensive. So if I've offended anyone with my graphic words so far, I'm very sorry indeed. And this Norfolk bumpkin is very sorry. But yeah, my dad's getting a bit of shit at the moment off my mum, and he's trying to ignore it because my mum thinks he's going deaf. I think there's a good case because my dad does a radio show at a station in Norwich, and it's a show on a Monday night that he plays all different music. He loves his music. He's old and he's new. He's very hip. He's a hip dad when it comes to music at 68 years old. And yeah, he's probably listening to music too loud, to be honest, on his headphones. And he has got that great thing of, just before we finish talking about him, of he will just be able to lose concentration very quickly. And I'm quite good at that. I definitely get that from him. He's not very good at concentrating on a lot of things at once, as us men aren't. Dear, did I say that? I've put the male population down, I'm sorry, but we're not, and I'm not very good at it, but he's really bad at it, and I think he is going a little deaf now, which isn't helping. I have been on the radio after him, and I've heard how loud the headphones are, and had to turn them down. There's a lot of what and and it really drives my mum absolutely incredibly crazy. So she's given him a lot of shit about getting a hearing test, which he's trying to put off, just like he does the diet as well. My dad is a aggressive lover of chocolate. About a year ago, I started running. I got back into running during lockdown, the very first lockdown, and I've really found a love for it again. So I've lost a lot of weight. I've lost four pounds in 4 pounds. I lost in under a year, and that was last year. So I think he feels I've left him in shit a little bit, to be honest with you, which I probably have, because he can't run. He's got chronic fatigue syndrome. So that isn't going to happen for him. But he does love his chocolate, and he's been naughty in times gone by on his travels out, and he would have a little snack when he was shopping, and Mum would find the wrappers. He wasn't very good at hiding the evidence, and he gets himself in trouble quite a lot, quite easily. But now with the hearing thing and the weight, double whammy, he's getting quite a lot in the neck off my mum, as he normally does. And you know, he's doing the hearing thing. He's definitely doing the see no evil, hear no evil thing. And now it's diet and hearing, and that is going to be coming up in episodes to come. Where we're at the moment, I'll keep you posted on that. He is probably going to have to give in, have a hearing test, because at the moment it's a lot of huh, what? It's nearly as bad as his snoring. So I'll keep you posted on that one. So dad hearing is going to have to be addressed, I think, or the rest of the world is just going to get, oh, what? Definitely not music to his ears anyway. But let's move on. And as I said, my mum and dad, huge part of my life, so they will be coming up, and so will my friends in this a lot. But one thing that did give my friends a laugh last week, towards the end of the week, I decided that, you know, going to the cinema, I've got a limitless card for one of the cinema chains that I won't mention because, you know, I don't want to end up in court, because they tend to not like what I say as a joke, or even though I'm laughing at myself when I talk about this. And my friends definitely laughed about it and told other friends as well. They might not find it funny, and they might find it derogatory. So we're just going to call the chain the cinema. It's just easier. The cinema. How did I come up with that one? I told you I was no genius. So anyway, last week I decided I had an afternoon, what I had free, and I decided, you know, cinema's getting into the back of the swing of things. There was something I wanted to see, which was probably coming to the end of its run, I thought anyway, because it was only on a couple of performances. So I thought I'll go by myself. That doesn't worry me. Do you know what? I'm not doing anything. Might as well go to cinema, see it as I wanted to see it. And anyway, I booked my ticket, because you do it on your app now. You know, even this country bumpkin can work an app. I'm quite tech savvy, and I booked my ticket, loved it, done it. Got on the train, got to Norwich, walked to the cinema, got in there, got up for the ticket check, and looked at me blankly. And this young guy, probably not far past a teenager, as they normally are who work in the cinema there, looked at me, looked worried, and had to explain to me that because I'm so sad and going to the cinema by myself, it was really going to be like that. I was going to have no one else in the performance with me, because I was the only one who booked a ticket for the film. A really popular one. No wonder it was coming to an end. But, so they cancelled the performance of that. So after a long chat, he felt a bit awkward in telling me that. I personally wasn't worried, because I was thinking, well, you know, I've made the effort to come in. I'll go and see my friend, and you know, the worst thing what's happening here is this is sending me to the pub. So basically, it wasn't the end of the world. But then this kid says to me, a bit like Kevin the teenager, he's like, Mister, what you could do is you could go and see another film. And you know, I was like, hey, why not? I'm here. What is the next performance? What could I go and see? And actually, the only thing I could have went and see was, I don't think there's any problem me saying this, Space Jam, was on, the new Legacy, the sequel, the big one. And to be honest with you, I loved the first Space Jam, but you know, it wasn't my number one priority to see it. It's something I could easily see at home when I'm able to. So I was like, yeah, why not? Okay, that's fine. You know, no real time difference in it because actually the film's a bit shorter. Yeah, okay. So off he went. And just to find out if I had to put it through the app again. And he comes back and he looks more sheepishly at me. And this teenager, Kevin the teenager, we'll call him, who works at the cinema at the moment, who isn't necessarily yet had full experience in customer service, is now having a nightmare with me. Not because I'm an arsehole, but he's having a nightmare with me because of the situation, because he's gone away and he comes back round to where they take the ticket. It's very quiet, no one else there but me, and he's gone white as a sheet. And I'm like, oh my God, what has someone told him? Someone told him like his parents had died or something, or maybe he's going to lose his cherry tonight, because that's what it looked like, that kind of horror, that thought of an experience you've never had. And he came up and he said, I'm really sorry. And I'm thinking, oh my God, you know, what's he going to tell me? And what he actually says next brings us back to Woody Allen, because I'm not sure if this makes me Woody Allen or a certain music star who done a moonwalk. Not that I can prove, because he was never actually done for it. But it turns out that I wouldn't be able to go and see Space Jam because it's what they now call family or child-friendly performances before 6 o'clock. Where if you are an adult, not necessarily, I don't think it has to be male, if you are an adult over a certain age, you are not allowed to go in to that performance into a children's performance. And I was a bit taken back by it because I thought it was actually going to be a lot worse. And, you know, it was bad for him. It was awkward for me at that point because it's a bit like being called, it felt like I was a paedophile trying to get into a party at that point, and it was a little bit awkward. So I sheepishly went, not a problem, buddy. Not a problem. I'll leave it. That's fine. There's stuff I can do. I was lying. There was nothing I could do at that point. There was, but I got turned away. I was hurt. So as I turned away, I went through again, like when Dad said to me about that time zone, I'd done that thing in my head, went through all those degrees of emotion. I was quite angry. I was like, well, hang on a minute. You know, I'm going to be sitting alone. That is fucking ridiculous. But then I thought, well, if it's my last children, yeah, I can see the point. But I felt quite hurt in myself. The more I thought about it, the more I got over the situation, the more you suddenly realise that was like being called Woody Allen. You feel a bit insinuated when you've done nothing, about that you're not trusted to go and sit in this auditorium and watch a film in the dark with the kids and sitting right across the other side of the cinema, because I always choose a seat away from people because people habits in the cinema. I'm a big film buff and people in the cinema tend to annoy me, especially if they start to talk in the film. So I tend to now get a seat away, so I at least as far away as possible from a lot of people in the cinema. So that kind of annoyed me, and I'm thinking, guys, you know, I feel now like I've moonwalked in the cinema. Get the gag there. So I'm probably going to get a lot of Michael Jackson fans come after me here, but he's just the first one that pops. And Woody Allen I talked about at the start, so that probably isn't a very good look for me. But you know, it made me feel like that. And when I actually saw my friends, because I then had to, I know, it's so disappointed, I had to go to the pub and I had a couple of pints with my friends instead. What a bummer. And I told him I had nowhere to go. I was lying. But they loved it. They thought that was an absolute brilliant scenario. They couldn't believe that happened to me. If it wasn't bad enough that the performance got cancelled, because they wouldn't let me watch it because I was the only one in there. It wasn't even worth opening the cinema up for me. They loved the fact that that they wouldn't let me in anywhere near children. And, you know, when I went out on Saturday after Dad's revelations about the time zones, when I saw the guys one of my friends wanted me to re-elect that story so he could tell his mates who he was with, who he went to school with, who he was watching the rugby with. And you know, that part is pretty soul destroying, but I can laugh at myself in terms of it is quite funny. And you know, and I did just laugh because in some ways it's kind of ridiculously funny, but in other ways it's kind of like I can see from their perspective why they'd like it. So that got me a lot of attention at the weekend. I didn't think about it when I told them, but now I am the man who can't go into a cinema screen without being I think it's CHB checked or CAB checked or something like that. Maybe I'll have to just go at midnight or in the midnight hour when adults are kind of allowed. I have been to the cinema since. I saw The Suicide Squad. It's okay if you want to go and see it. I did go and see that, so I have been to the cinema since. It was before 6 o'clock, so technically good news. I am allowed into the cinema, but probably if it had been Jungle Cruise or something like that, I would have been in a lot of trouble. So I'm not seeing a rock film till after 6 o'clock. If it's a Disney, I'm not going to see it. I'll have to go in the midnight hour because I'm a dangerous human being. Obviously, maybe they heard about some of the things I've said about some of the films in the past, but that is the situation. But I did go. But my only last point about the cinema is when they talk about kids' films now, there was a lot of young people in that. And I just don't know what a film has got to do to get an 18 certificate anymore. When I was younger, when I was a boy in Norfolk, and we had the Odeon, the old Odeon up Anglia Square and the ABC, and they were pretty strict on films. You know, there were some films which were not that bad, which got 18 certificates. Now, The Suicide Squad is very gory. You know, it puts some of the violence and the deaths in that and how people die, and you see it puts things like, you know, Nightmare on Elm Street, which was a definite 18 back in the day with Freddy Krueger, in its place. I mean, wowzers. Yeah, I got to say, I don't really have a problem with goriness, but certainly there was a few bits in that which were like, wowzers. That is not a good way to go. But I think that was the shock value they went for. And if you've not seen The Suicide Squad, I definitely recommend it as one of the better films so far this summer. But we're not here for me to do someone's promotion for them, because that's just my word on that. So let's come on to, from me getting persecuted maybe at the cinema, not allowed into a children's film because children were in the performance, and being a single male adult, to brings us nicely on to social media, because things like that, I mean, in the past 15 to 18 months, people have had less stuff to do, and social media has got pretty meaty just recently, has slowly descended into, we had the slogan "Be kind," and I actually think it's descended into anything but. And I'm probably going to get a backlash on this. There's so many, I think the last 15 to 18 months has let so many of the Looney Tunes take over social media. And you know, I'm not saying this as someone who's anti-social media, because actually, if you knew me well, or were one of my friends, or you knew me, we're a friend on Facebook, you would probably know a few years ago, I was pretty hot on social media, and you know, I posted a lot of, looking back on it, a lot of rubbish, to be honest with you. I'm on the toilet, whee! You know, I'm having a pizza, cowabunga. We all go through a social media age. I think a lot of people have, if they're kind of social. So I hold my hands up to that. But it's turned quite nasty over the last 15 to 18 months, to the point that I've kind of retreated a little bit from it. Facebook is pretty bad, and Twitter has become very bad, to be honest with you, to the point that I guess Instagram is the one I probably look at a bit more now, because people just put pictures and you don't get really politics on there, or certainly the people that I follow, you don't. But social media has just ended up becoming this Looney Tune land for the people who should probably not do social media at all, some who are genuinely probably not well as others and looking for attention. And it's become quite disconcerting for me because I'm quite live and let live, and I laugh at a lot of stuff, but some of the stuff I've seen posted, I'm like, oof, that's not nice. Or people just becoming genuinely quite nasty about their opinions and not respecting other people's. And there was always that element, but people did. That was the minority, and a lot of people did, and there were discussions on there, and there was some banter. But some of those places now have become pretty nasty places, and things that happened outside in sport and things of that nature where we know it's enticed people to become very nasty and non-accountable, which is totally rubbish, which I don't support. And there should be some verification, because people shouldn't do any kind of hate on their racism of any kind is unacceptable. And I'm not, just because I'm a country bumpkin, I do not support hate, violence or racism to anyone of any kind. That just isn't me, and that's why I've retreated a little bit from it. And one of the things really on social media I've noticed of late is the celebrities, and this is my final point today on my diary, is that that's what's going to bring us on to privilege. Because something I've noticed is on social media is the people coming through, the Z celebrities, if you call it a celebrity, is the celebrities like Katie Price. Now, my mum, I said my mum and dad would go play a long part in this. My mum suffers from like an insomnia, where part of her illness, she doesn't always sleep fully at night. So my mum has gone through that whole process of when a few years ago we got her a phone, like a mobile phone, and before that she was very technophobe, and she had nothing like that. She didn't embrace it. She said she was never going to get it. She didn't need one. There was no one she needed to phone. She was, at that point, COVID didn't exist, and she was going to knitting clubs and things like that. She now has an iPhone. She has the iPhone 7. She has an Amazon Fire, a 10-inch tablet, which she functions fine. She's worked out that on the iPhone as well, quite cunningly, she's worked out that they've got the sent and read option on text, on iMessage. So she's worked that all out, and she knows now if you've read a message and you haven't texted her back, she is on it. So she's gone from technophobe to quite on it. Now, what she does love to read, and we'll talk another week about how dangerous the news can be, is as good as the news can be, like your 24 Newsers. I'll talk about that another episode. But she does love her News 24. But what she's worked out on the apps is she can read all the celebrity news. So when she's awake late at night, she's still trying to be quiet, she reads all this news, and she reads a lot of the junk celebrity news. And one of the people who comes on that a lot is Katie Price. Katie Price, I hear you say, yes. And don't worry, I'm not drinking urine. If you're watching the video, that is my sports drink for running, isotonic. So yeah, basically, she reads a lot of celebrity news, so she gets a lot of the Katie Price. And if you look online, a lot of people who are quite rampant, like I said, probably the people who shouldn't put social media on a lot, who are quite needy, are some of these Z celebrities, and they're doing quite a lot, and some of the stuff they're saying is quite controversial. Katie Price, no different, but they keep in the media, they keep themselves in there. They're seen as apparently influencers, so they can travel abroad, they can do stuff other people can't do. It winds people up, but they're still there, they're still a public figure. And Katie Price, I personally, and I'm going to say her name, I haven't got any time for. If that was in this world, street, she's kind of like the lowest dominion to me that I would want to socialise with. And I'm probably lucky I don't. So good luck to her. If you like her, great. But my point on this is that the other day, one of the stories, my mum always talks about it and I kind of zone in and out because she's not someone I've particularly got a lot of time for and I don't want to give a lot of time for. However, I myself was on the train and I was looking at some of the news stories, and this was actually a true news story that they had an expert, a bit like Kevin McLeod from the TV, architecture and building work and something like that. And my mum had said something to me ages ago about Katie Price's house, that she had this kind of big mansion and she just let it go to pot, to shit, basically. And it was had, if you could believe what you read, it had dog poo. She'd let animals poo all over the place. It was in bad condition. It was not very old, and she'd let it get run down, and she was bankrupt. And this house expert who'd gone round actually said that was one of the worst examples he'd seen in a long, long time, from going round like that he'd seen some council houses, how they're left and things of that nature, to people who just couldn't do anything to it because they were old or something of that nature. There was a reason. And he said there's no reason to this, it's just been left as a shithole, basically. And he was like, I said, it's disgusting. And if you don't know the story about this, as you dug deeper into this news story, Katie Price has been declared bankrupt twice, I think in the last 18 months, 12 months, something like that. And they're attempting to sell this mansion as tough because it's in such a bad condition, the way she's let it go. A bit like the guy who won the lottery here in Norfolk, the way he let his mansion go and how he done dirt biking on it, and it was a nightmare, even though it was new. And then it got me thinking, as you looked more at this, every time they go to court, not just Katie Price, because someone else I'm going to talk about, a celebrity, also, when you looked into this story, that they always go to court and they always claim they can't live a certain kind of life, not a life like us ordinary people. And, certainly I appreciate I come from privilege. I do. I've always had a roof over my head. I've never slept, never been homeless. So I count myself very lucky, and I guess it's white privilege that some other people haven't had. And when you looked at these celebrities, I was looking at some stories where they were claiming that certain things they couldn't live in. And when they were claiming poverty, I was looking at these guys and they still owned houses. Now, poverty apparently comes down to if you're a Z celebrity, or you've been some kind of celebrity and you've gone bankrupt. Apparently now, what do I know anymore? If you live in a 5-bedroom house that is worth 400 to 500 grand, some of them 750k, that makes you pretty destitute. It makes you, it makes you in a pretty bad situation. And this is what some have pleaded poverty when it's gone to court for bankruptcy, that they've had to downsize house. There's a couple of celebrities who've had to downsize. One who used to, I think she was in a female pop band for a little while, and she's actually lost money and had to downsize and went bankrupt. And I'm not laughing at someone for going bankrupt, anyone, but in court, if that's me and I'm pleading poverty and I had a 5-bedroom house worth 500k, they might look at me, which I owned, slightly strange. But these people get away with it. They go and plead poverty and get more time because they're living on a nice, quite posh estate in a 5-bedroom house, or a new estate with 5 bedrooms and like 2 en suites, which the average person wouldn't get. Now, I always thought poverty or non-privilege would be, some people who are in a bad housing situation where they get put in a maisonette with 2 bedrooms with like 4 kids and 1 adult or something like that, or something small. So I find it totally incredible that these are one of the things that are winding me up at social media at the moment, where they're pleading things and they're trying to tell you that they're not taking the piss. But the truth is, I'm sorry guys, your celebrity Z listing is taking the piss wholly. And you know, that is where we are with social media, and that kind of behaviour is a snowball effect on social media. It isn't for me. I've backed off it a little bit. I do sometimes put the odd tweet out about, certainly when my radio shows are on, I sometimes do that. But I've backed off wholly. I did used to put about some of my running as well, like when I lost the 4 pounds, to try and encourage someone else. But I even got abused on that. One of my favourite that someone put, I think just recently, to give you an idea of how nasty people can be on social media, was about, I'll leave you with this thought. So there's someone on social media who used to go out with someone I know, a partner, and again, a great example of someone who shouldn't be on social media but are. They put everything on there, they splash it out. And one of their comments were, not long ago, was, because they're not the most active on exercise, was a brilliant one. She put, I'm fed up of seeing all your pictures, the people who are going to the gym or doing exercise, all your pictures, can't you just all fuck off and all be happy and eat cake? And that's the kind of post what people are putting. That was just a general one, and this person has done a lot more, which are almost worse as well, just hanging your dirty washing out on social media, and obviously getting rude with other people as well. And you know, it frustrates me why someone has to go down that route. But I looked at it as someone who exercised, I was like, Jesus Christ, that's quite rude and nasty. And it is, and that's where we're at. And it's just give people a license. You don't need a gun anymore, you just need social media. And obviously, to anyone who's watching this, if you're pleading poverty as well, and you've got a house with a roof over it and you've got 5 bedrooms, you can claim poverty now on the Celebrity Z list, which is all over there. And you know, the reason they've taken over is their bad behaviours that maybe is rub off, where they're telling people to be kind, where maybe they should just be kind themselves. Whew. Did you enjoy that? Well, we've come to the end of this episode. I think it's a nice time to wrap this up. Like I said, I hope I've not offended anyone. The points I've talked about, these are all my opinions. This is a Country Bumpkin's opinion, so don't take it to your heart, because, you know, if you agree, fine. If not, you might be in a minority, because I'm in the country in Attleborough in Norfolk, and I'm locked in my studio here. So don't worry too much if you don't agree with my points, because I only get let out so often. That isn't true. I do get let out quite often. But for now, I'm wrapping it up. If you like it, you like it. If you don't, you don't. Episode 2 will be up shortly. Just be safe. Do be kind on social media. Wouldn't it be nice for the world to be a better place? We'll just have to work a bit harder for that. And really that does bring this to the end. So what I'm going to say is, I'll see you soon. Keep it real on the streets wherever you are, and love where you are regionally, because that's important. But for now, I'll see if I make it to the cinema this week, if I'm allowed in any performances. Maybe that's me banned for life, we'll have to see. Hopefully I'm not a new Woody Allen or Michael Jackson. That's not what they're trying to tell me. But until we do this again, ta-ta for now.